I need people out there to understand something so important. Christian Zionists do not actually care about the well-being of Jewish people. Many, if not the majority of Christian Zionists in America, blindly support the nation-state of Israel because of the role they believe it plays in ushering in the end of the world. Here's how the whole thing works. For Christian Zionists, the nation-state of Israel being established in 1948 was a huge fulfillment of their very unorthodox interpretation of biblical prophecy. In their minds, the worse the world gets, including the rise of anti-Semitism, the closer we are to the tribulation.
Well, it is the end days, and we're one day closer to the return of Jesus. And as that ramps up, we're going to see a rise of evil. We're going to see a rise of glory, and we're going to see a rise of hatred for the Jewish people.
You'll notice that the guy in that video, Sean Foyt, is smiling a lot when he says all of this. And that's because in his mind, things are getting worse. Anti-Semitism is growing. And that means him and the true Christians are closer to being raptured or teleported into the sky to live in heaven with God while 7 years of tribulation ravage the world that's left behind. Now here's where it gets really ugly. In the eschatology of Christian Zionism, after the rapture happens and during the 7 years of tribulation, they believe that 2/3 of Jewish people are gonna die, and the last third, known as the remnant, will convert to Christianity, recognizing Jesus as the true Messiah. Jews are tolerated, even celebrated by Christian Zionists because of their role in bringing about another religion's messianic redemption, which occurs at the expense of the Jews' religion and existence. Christian Zionists can't wait for the rapture, and the only way for that to happen is if the nation-state of Israel stands. Christian Zionism is anti-Semitic and needs to be exposed for the rotten theology it is. It dehumanizes Palestinian lives as being in the way of God's grand plan, and it dehumanizes Jewish lives, making them a violent means to a very evangelical end.
As much as I can appreciate his rant concerning the far-right evangelicals, he himself being an evangelical, but a liberal evangelical, more liberal evangelical, y'all are on the same team, just not as far to the right of the pole as that guy is to the right of the pole. Because unless you have not been around many Baptists and Methodists and any other form of Christianity, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witness, it is the same rhetoric. The only difference, and here's the main difference, is that the white evangelical right is also based on nationalism and racism. So they have those two things that you don't have as much of. Because in all your Christian teachings, you believe in the teaching that if you bless Israel, you will be blessed. If you hate Israel, you will be hated. Or curse Israel, you will be cursed. All of y'all believe that. So in essence, all of y'all believe that what happened in 1948 and the establishment of the state of Israel is a harbinger of this apocalyptic writing in your Gospels and in the book of Revelations. And all of you expect that to happen. Not just them. They're just more, they have more glee about it. That's all. And they're more concerned about America and their whiteness than they are concerned about loving your neighbor, so to speak. But y'all feel the same way. And even though you say that they have the perception that anti-Semitism is growing and is getting worse, y'all do the same thing. But I would guarantee that if you would go and talk to a person who survived Auschwitz, a person who was here in the early to mid 1900s in America who was Jewish, they would tell you that there is less anti-Semitism today than it was when they were coming up. Because if you're trying to tell me that there's more anti-Semitism today than it was during World War II in the 1940s, in America during the 1950s and 60s, you are sadly mistaken. That is the same way when I see black people and they say that things are worse now in America than they ever were before. No. We actually just had the FBI come out with a crime rate, and across the board, crime is down. Violent crime is down 15%. Most other violent crimes are down in the 20% percentiles. So things aren't getting worse. And if you try to tell me that things are worse today for a black man in America than things were when my father was a grown man in the 70s and in the 60s, you's a lie. If you want to tell me that things are worse for a black man or a black woman than they were during Jim Crow, you's a lie. If you want to tell me that things are worse now than they were during the time frame of the antebellum, you lying. And if things are worse than they were during slavery in America, you's a lie. Things, I'm not saying they're all great and everything's all peachy keen, but what I am saying is that things are better now than they ever were in the history of America for the overwhelming majority of people in America. Like my pappy used to say, those were the bad old days, not the good old days. But they've tricked people. You know, this whole MAGA thing, make America great again. When was America ever great for the overwhelming majority of the people in America? Unless you was an Anglo-Saxon white Christian male, things were never great for America. It was great for one section of America, and that's it. But see, you got to placate to the drama of your book, because the drama of your book says that things have to get worse. So every generation thinks that things have gotten worse. Even I sometimes will fall into the trap of saying things are not as good as they were when I was a child. But when I was a child, I didn't recognize how effed up things were in society. When I was 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17 years old, I didn't recognize a lot of the things that was going on around me. All I had was my little bubble of friends and family and what was going on in the city of Marietta and Atlanta. So I didn't recognize what my parents were dealing with, what my uncles were dealing with. I didn't recognize all those things. So of course now, when I look at what happens with children and what children are going through, I didn't know that stuff was going on when I was a kid. I didn't recognize it. Now I know. Now I see. And so knowing that, I know that things are better today than they were when my parents were coming up, when my grandparents, when my great-grandparents, when my great-great-granddaddy Lemmy was coming up. Things were horrible for great-great-great-granddaddy Lemmy, well, great-great-granddaddy Lemmy, because great-great-granddaddy Lemmy was in Georgia during the antebellum time frame and living through a literal hell of being a black man in America. So no, things aren't getting worse. But you have to project that image if you want your story to fit, your biblical stories to fit. You have to say things are getting worse. This is not Roman times when people can just kill you. The government can just kill you at a moment's whim without any repercussion. They got to sneak it now, but they was able to do it right in your face. When the emperor could single out a group and blame them for things and kill them en masse. Can't do that anymore. When kings could just come and take your land and do whatever they want to you and force you to do into warfare when you had nothing to do. It's not the same. When people were just going and taking people's land in colonization, it's not the same as it was. It was worse. It was worse back then than it is today. So your whole book is a failed prophecy. The whole damn book is a failed prophecy. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.